Okay, hey guys, and welcome back to another video of the Revell 1957 Chevy Bel Air. There's quite a little bit been done since the last video. Unfortunately, things just haven't been going to plan. It's not the best fitting kit, and as I've been doing one little bit, it's led to another bit, and before you know it I've done a few more pieces which I meant to document as I went along, and unfortunately didn't have the chance to. So where we are at the moment, I left the last video just having finished the alclad chrome on the bodywork, so that's pretty much as it was. What I hadn't done really was started on the body tub, the seats and dashboard and such inside. Now the dash, aside from the top panel being painted the body colour, as you can see there, has had the steering wheel and bits and pieces attached to it, and the dash painted in aluminium. Which I'm trying to show you there. Hopefully you'll be able to see a bit of it. You'll see that the seats have been painted red and then masked off with an ivory surround, and also the door caps have been done with ivory tops and bands at the doors. The paint I used for that was Vallejo paint, Vallejo ivory paint, which is the first time I tried using it for spraying, and frankly it was absolutely awful. Based on that, I shan't be using Vallejo paints again, ever. It's strange, a lot of people swear by them, think they're marvellous. I thought it was absolutely horrible. It didn't thin very well, it didn't spray very well, and it doesn't even brush paint very well, which seemingly a lot of people rate them very much for brush painting. But there you go. Maybe it's just me, something I'm doing, but I never seem to have a great problem brush painting or spraying Tamiya acrylics, for example. So in all honesty, I'm not impressed with that Vallejo paint at all. That was the Model Air. I've not tried the one that's airbrush specific. No, is it Model Air that's airbrush specific? And Model Colour, I think, which is the one that's supposed to be for brush painting, but frankly it brush paints awfully anyway. Maybe I'll try one of the Model Air ones and see how that goes, but all in all I can't say I'm impressed with those. So anyway, enough insulting of that particular paint. So yeah, as you can see there, I fitted the windows. Now this started as a trial fit while I fitted the body tub, but it wouldn't stay in place, so I wound up gluing it anyway. I used super glue and unfortunately fogged a bit of the back window just down there where my thumb is. I don't know if that's actually visible. It's not too bad, thankfully, but it's there and it's kind of an annoyance. But anyway, that's the windows in, and then as I say, I wound up gluing the body tub in, being finished, to help me trial fit the chassis. That's what it currently looks like underneath. I've since finished the engine. The whole thing was sprayed in a red colour. Under advisement from one of the guys on eScale who knows his American cars. I was under the impression that the sump pan would have been a satin black like many British cars. Seemingly not. They just sprayed the whole block as an assembly, so the whole thing came on, they sprayed the whole thing as an assembly. The only differences I've made to the top are I've left the rocker covers in chrome, just because I think it looks quite nice, and there's a couple of little bits of painting to do yet, but the fan and everything's assembled, the fan belt is all painted up, and this pipe here I'm going to paint black once it's all in place, and the whole, I may put a bit of a wash on the injection system, and inlet side I've not decided yet. Underneath, the main floor pan has been painted with the same method as the body colour, gold with a Tamiya clear red overlay, satin black for the chassis rails, the main structural rails and the steering gear, also the prop shaft and the rear differential and the petrol tank that you can see there. I dry brushed the prop shaft, the leaf springs and all the steering gear in with a silver, just to give them a more worn sort of metallised look. I don't know how well that shows up on here. And the exhaust has been painted in Humbrol stainless steel, which buffs up quite nicely to a relatively convincing stainless steel. This is what I tend to use for brake discs on the motorbike models, and it's quite a nice paint and buffs up quite nicely. I then gave the whole thing a dirty wash, just a black, well, a sort of dark muddy brown oil wash, and then gave it some selective swipes with a thinner soaked Q-tip. Cotton bud, basically just to mucky up the underneath a little bit, because I always find spotlessly pristine underneath look a little unconvincing to me. The whole assembly, once it's in place, fits quite nicely. I'll just try and slot it in and show you guys what that's going to look like. And this is the bit where it's you have to do a bit of stretching and tweaking just to get everything to slot in nicely. And there we go. So yeah, as you can see, that all slots together really quite nicely, considering that the rest of the model has been a bit of a pain. There are some things I can see now that I would do differently if I made this model again. This whole section at the rear, for example, a lot of that's going to be visible if you look underneath, so I would have painted the whole of the innards there, as I did with the front, to make sure that the tops of the wings and such weren't glaringly white against the rest of the body colour. But these are little things that you sort of pick up as you go along, and the first sort of big American car I've done, so yeah, there's certainly some things I'd do differently the next one that I build, but it's all part of the learning process, so it's all good. The bright work obviously has yet to go on, as you can see, all the bonnet, the headlight surrounds, the flashers on the bonnet there. There's the engine as it stands in there, or sits in there as it were, and there's this wee bit here, the radiator assembly, which has yet to go to be fitted in, as you can see. Now I did that in chrome, although it didn't actually call for it being with a chrome surround. I just thought it'd be quite a nice addition, because I'm sort of basing this model on a mildly customised version, hence the custom candy type paint, although it won't be heavily so it's not going to be lowered or have big wide wheels or anything silly like that. So that's the body shell. The under bonnet detail is pretty poor compared to some of the Tamiya kits, for example, I've done. That's the battery, very sort of basic and poor detail. I don't know if that'll focus on there, but it's really not very good. It does the job, but I'm not going to bother sort of trying to super detail this, putting distributor kits and wires from the battery and the like. That'd just be too fiddly, and frankly I don't think the detail's convincing enough to get away with that either. The only stumbling block I've come across so far are the wheels. Now the tyres are quite nice themselves, with Goodyear moulded into them. The wheels themselves with the kit chrome are quite nice, the standard ones I've used rather than the custom. The problem I have is these rear discs. Now you have two sections. You have a disc that slots in, and you have a little sort of hub pin, button, whatever you want to call it. And now unfortunately, according to the instructions, if you assemble it according to the instructions, it just doesn't fit together right at all. And if you try the various other ways that you can, you either end up with the wheel really stuck out, so it's sort of brushing the edge of the wheel arch, or way too far in, so it just doesn't look right at all. I've not really figured out how I'm going to get around that yet, but basically I need to find some method of spacing though. I'm going to wind up having to trim some bits down, I'm sure. I've already had a trial trim of this, trying to trim the inside to bring it in that couple of millimetres to make it look more convincing. That's what it would look like. Grey one in this hand here. It's got a little lip on the inside, which this one I've carved away with a craft knife to see if I can get it to fit better. Yeah, it's a tricky one that. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to get around that one, but yeah, basically what I need to do is work it in such a way so that I can make the wheels fit in a more convincing fashion, so they're not sat too far inside or too far outside, too close to the actual wheel arches. So we'll see how we go with that. That's where we are with the model at present. A few little bits and bobs and a few little touches up. and then the bright work to go on. So hopefully the next video should be me just finishing up the last little bits and pieces, and we should wind up with a reasonably presentable model. And as I say, for my first American car and for an old Revell kit, I'm quite pleased with that. I'm so used to buildings where motorbikes and cars I tend to go with the Tamiya kits, so they go together really easy, very few fit issues, even with an old kit like the Tamiya Lotus 7 I did recently. So this one's been interesting, to say the least. So sorry for the delay between video 3 and this one. And as I say, hopefully it'll not be too long before the next one, which should show the completed model. So I hope you found this interesting, and thanks for watching.